Today, I got some cool accessories for the Leica and Sony shooters out there, plus a new L bracket for the Nikon Z6III shooters, but the large focus is on a firmware bug in the Q3 that Leica has talked to me about, but it's still not fixed, and the new firmware includes it. I will show you how to get around it and let you make your own decision about whether this new firmware is worth updating. If you use profiles, definitely watch this. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. So we're going to talk mostly about Leica and Leica's Q3 and a little bug that's been in the firmware update for the last few versions and how to get around it. But before we do that, for those of you who are Leica only, you can just scroll along the timeline and hit the point where I start talking about all that. But I did promise the Z6III users out there a cool update on L brackets, and so I'll talk about that really fast first. The Kirk has come out with their Z6III L bracket. I tested it out on a buddy's Z6III since I got rid of mine. I really like it. I like the way they tapered the little cutout for the flip screen. It's super usable. It's nicer, I think, than small rigs by quite a fair bit, and it's got that built-in beautiful Kirk QD port. Built-in tool, the whole shebang-a-bang, Kirk quality, super nice L bracket. So I know it's been difficult to get the small rig version in the United States, so I'm putting a link to this L bracket in this video's full description, and you can always click up here to go to hudsonhenry.com/ATS links, where I have links to all the gear that I use and recommending. You'll find this now everywhere that I link the Z6III, under the mirrorless bodies and everywhere else. So great L bracket. Go grab that if you have a 6.3. You won't be disappointed. You'll notice I have a Studiobook 16 and Asus laptop here. I did a video about that not very long ago. I had demoed one that B&H was happy to loan me. And just like you guys, I got snafu'd by my own video, and after a while I missed it after reviewing it. So I'm sort of standing by my own words, and I purchased my own i9 64GB RTX 3000 beautiful beast of a laptop to use on workshops, and it is a screaming creator's machine. So you can see the video I did about it right here. I'm super happy with the decision now, about 10 days into using it myself. You know, I had the other one for a month and then I had to send it back, and I've missed it ever since. So now I have my own. All right, one other quick note, and we're going to start jumping into Leica land right here and right now. Talk about the Q3's firmware snafu, but first I have been testing and using Fuji's excellent little X100VI as well as Leica's tiny little kind of throwback to the days when we had point and shoot cameras, except an updated, beautiful, sort of machined, spectacular Leica version, the D-lux 3, smaller sensor, zoom lens, wonderful OS. And I will say that, you know, neither one of these is going to stay in my stable to replace the Q3, but they're not priced like they would. You could get 4 of either of these cameras almost for the price of a Q3, but the Q3 is that special. For those of you who have one, you understand what I'm talking about. This 28 1.7 lens is just nothing short of magnificent, and the Q3 adds that crazy 60 megapixel sensor that seems to do even better in the light than the older lower megapixel sensor, and they moved the handling around to be even better than the Q2, and it just is a wonderful, wonderful machine to use. That said, I've been enjoying both of these and look for some content about them. I will definitely do a setup guide and user guide for the X100VI. It's an awesome little camera, and I can see it. I can see why the younger generation loves this machine. It takes stunning photos, and it really lets you unleash your own artistic control. I mean, it is a manual camera, wonderful film emulations. There's a lot of things to love about it. I'll be talking more about that in weeks to come. The D-lux 8, I only have had it a few days. I think it's beautiful. It takes great images. It's got a great lens. It's a smaller sensor. I haven't completely formed my opinion. I think there are some people who will love this camera. It's not cheap for that type of camera that it is. but it's interesting. So I'll let you know more of my thoughts after I spend some more time with its images and more time shooting with it. All right. One cool accessory for those with either the Fuji X100VI or the Leica Q cameras case. I've been bugging them for a really long time. I love their MC-UV filters. They're really high quality. They're more affordable than a lot of other glass filters out there. And you know, they're super protective. They're smudge resistant, water resistant, durable, and lightweight and thin. And they finally put out the 49mm MC-UV3, which fits beautifully under the hood of the Q3, and it also happens to fit the bulk of the adapters for filter threads on the X100VI, the Fuji. So under this little hood, I've got the filter adapter for 49mm and that case 49 MC-UV3. So I'm putting a link to that in this video's description. It'll also be up on my site with both of these cameras will be those MC-UV filters. It's like $30. It's kind of a no-brainer. Go grab them. I'm probably going to be getting a shipment of them, putting them on my website too. If you want to buy them from me, let me know. Shoot me an email or hit me in the comments. So let's talk about this firmware bug in Leica's Q3. And this one, you know, I hope Leica listens to this. I'm probably going to talk to Leica. They called me back about this bug. I explained it to them. They tested it. They said, yes, that's clearly a bug. And then the two firmware versions that have come since with bug fixes have not yet fixed it. And what it is that if you have a set of profiles, like the custom profiles that I share with the community, you can click right here to go to my latest updated profiles for Leica's Q3. I have them for the Q2 and the Q2 monochrome as well on my website if you go look in the free download section. Those profiles will set your camera in 6 different profiles for different shooting situations with the touch of the menu button and a touch of the profile. You can go to black and white, you can go to face detect, you can go to action, you can go to landscape, you can go to standard shooting mode. And one of the things that the Q3 did that was a really nice improvement over the Q2 was it added custom button functionality to a number of buttons that hadn't been programmable on the Q2. It moved the buttons around a little bit, and it gave you the accessibility of a whole bunch of functions that the Q2 didn't have. A deep set of options for every single function button, and all you have to do is long press that button to come up with a long list of functions that you can choose from. Now you can go into the camera settings and limit that list for each button to a limited number of settings. And one of the first things that I did with the Q3 was run through and sort of map a different set of options for every button that I thought kind of made sense for the position of each button. And then select one of those functions that that button would do that I thought made the most sense. And then Leica came out with one of the firmware 2-point-something versions. I can't remember exactly which one. And the minute that you upload a firmware version, the easiest way to do that is from the Leica Photos app on your iOS or Android device. It'll upload the firmware to the camera, and it'll ask you if you want to save your profiles to the memory card. You say yes, and then once it updates the firmware, it resets everything to factory defaults, and you have to load your profiles back off the card. Well, the funny thing is that ever since 3 updates ago, when you load your profiles back off the card, everything comes across except for this function 2 button. That's the button that's closest to the thumb rest here on the back of the camera. And for some reason, it goes to the factory default of flipping from photo to video mode when you're in photo mode, which most people are using. So my list of options for that button remains. Photo to video was not one of those options, but people upload the profiles and press that button thinking that they'll get autofocus lock, which is what I had that button programmed for. It's similar to back button focus. You press that button and it locks focus on whatever your subject is so you can recompose and shoot. But instead it flips to video mode. And it does lock in the programmed setting that I had in video mode. Video mode has a completely different set of button customizations, so that when you press the button again, instead it stays in video mode and starts going into the different crop modes that are possible on the sensor. So the only way to get out would be to press the menu button in the quick menu and touch photo instead of video at the top. And that really confuses a lot of people. A lot of people get thrown off. Whether they've got their own profiles that are saved or whether they're using my profiles, that's a bug, that it doesn't remember what function button 2 is programmed to do. So there is a workaround for it, but I would say to you that most of the updates since firmware 2.0 are not dramatic. They don't add a whole bunch of functionality to the camera. There's no new focusing modes. There's no major updates that are significant. So you might think twice. I would have you watch what's about to come. I'm going to show you how to fix everything in this. It's a detailed process. You have to run through and repair that setting and save over each and every one of your profiles. There's no way to save a set of profiles and upload it after the firmware update that will fix this problem. You have to physically go in and change each and every one of your profile settings. So I tried fixing this and then saving the profile and then uploading it to no avail. The minute you restore your profiles with this firmware, it nukes what function 2 is doing. You have to run through it and do it every time you upload profiles. It's a significant bug, and I really wish Leica would fix it, and I'm going to point Leica to this video. And I'll point anyone who emails me about the problem to this video. That's one of the reasons that I'm making it. But check it out. I'm going to record myself fixing this problem on the Q3, and then you can make your own decision about firmware updates. All right, so I'm going to walk you through how to actually fix this bug if you've updated your firmware. You know, again, no real major reasons to upgrade some of these minor firmwares if you don't want to go through this hassle. Unfortunately, downloading my latest version of this settings file and loading those user profiles from your memory card, it isn't actually going to avoid having to do all this. The minute you do this firmware update, you have to go through this process. It's not horribly difficult, it's just a little long in the tooth, and it gets old multiple times doing it. I was really hoping that this bug would be fixed in this new firmware, but okay, I've just upgraded to firmware 2.0.5. The firmware update in the app, I used my phone. You just connect your Q3 into the Leica Photos app, whether you're on Android or iOS, and it'll remind you there's a firmware update. And if you choose to apply it, it'll send the data to the phone, connect in and upload that firmware and then install it. And once it's ready to install, the phone will ask you if you, or the camera will ask you if you want to save your profiles to the memory card. I would say you might as well do that, or you can download them from my website again. But once you've downloaded, you're going to turn on your camera, you're going to go into the menu, and if you run over to your profiles, you go into the standard profile and you hit the function 2 button, you're going to find it takes you straight to video. And that's not what that button was programmed to do in the profile. It's the same in every profile. It goes back to the default. It doesn't accept the selected option from that button. And pressing the button again actually starts changing your frame lines in video, which is what I have that button programmed to do in video in these user presets. So the only way to get out of video is actually to press the menu button and tap photo at the top to take you back from photo to video. That's in that quick menu. So how do we fix this? Okay, well, let's jump in. We're going to select our profiles. We're going to start with number 1. It's important to remember where we are. We'll go into number 1, and then remember to change the things that you want to do with each function button. You can long press them. So I'm going to long press that function 2 button. There's that list of choices that my presets, my profiles limit that button to, the things that kind of are together. And autofocus lock is what it's supposed to be. We select that, and now that button is actually going to do nothing but autofocus lock. It's not focusing right now because we're in manual focus. I'm keeping everything blurred to not be distracting. But it's not taking us to video anymore, and if you were in autofocus, it would do autofocus lock. Now we just have to save that in this particular profile. So we go menu, we press menu again, menu again, menu again, menu again, menu again, until we get to page 4 of the main menu, and we go down to user profile, And we got to go all the way to the bottom of the list. The way I like to do that is press up once. That takes us to the bottom. It'd be the same thing as scrolling through all of the different profiles. And you get to the bottom, manage profiles, and we want to save it as a profile, and we want to overwrite that standard profile, profile 1. So we'll say yes, we're going to overwrite it, okay? Boom, now that one is done. Sadly, we have to go through all of them. So I'll show you the second one, and then I'll probably speed the whole thing up. We're going to go into black and white, and then we go into the we get out of the quick menu, and we got to long press the function 2 button and select AFL, and then go into the menu. We press menu button again, press it again to get out of favorites. Now, like it's smart, it jumps right to where you were in the menu last. That's a little bit of a time saver here. We go into user profile, we go up to go to manage profiles, we say save as profile, we're in black and white. Be sure you get these right. We say yes, that one's done, okay? Saved as profile. Now, we hit the menu button again, we can touch the profile, we can say landscape and pano, profile 3. It could be your profile 3. You might have changed it from my defaults. Now you're in there. The all important thing, you got to long press that function 2 button again. Run down to AFL, select it. Now you hit menu, menu, menu. Takes you right back to the user profiles. Move to the right, move up to get to the bottom. Move to the right, save as profile. We're in landscape and pano. Boom. Yes. All right, now I'm going to speed the whole thing up. I'll be quiet while I do it. Okay, now that I've done it for all 6 of my profiles, if I was to go in and select any of them, let's say we run over to number 3, all right? And I'll actually move the camera into its autofocus setting here, all right? And we'll put something out here towards the end of the table. It's pretty dark. Let's see, we're in a darker mode. It's having a little trouble focusing. I can open things up. Actually, I'm in macro mode. That's part of my problem. Okay, we come off of macro mode, and we could open things up a little bit. All right, put our focus point over here, and then if we were to press the button, boom, autofocus lock. It is working. That's working in any of my modes now. I go into black and white, and get the edge of the field focus on there, press that button, autofocus lock, all right? So now it's working. Sadly, that is the only way to fix this after a firmware update. Until Leica solves this bug, it only affects that one button, the function 2 button, the most useful button, the one that's right at your thumb. For some reason, once you do the firmware update, even if you load new profiles in afterwards, even if that profile was saved in the new firmware, it doesn't apply the chosen setting. It leaves it at that default flip from photo to video. Sadly, I mean, it makes it even more confusing that it does save the default setting in the video mode. Once you get to video mode, it doesn't flip you back to photo because it remembers what you might have set that button to do in video mode in your profile. So the only way, again, to get out of video mode is to go into your menu, and you have that upper button that takes you from photo to video, photo to video. So that's how you fix it. Again, you know, if the firmware doesn't have any major new features, maybe just skip it and don't have to go through this every time. I will let you know when they bring out the firmware that fixes this bug, or if there's some firmware that has a cool new feature that's that's really worth adding, I'll let you know that and remind you of where this video is located so you can link right to it. All right, so there you go. It's not the most complicated things to fix, it's just time consuming. I've done it 3 times now, and I wish there was a way that I could save my profile settings so that you could upload them and avoid this, but there isn't. You can upload my profile settings, but you're still gonna have to go through that process of entering each profile, long pressing the function 2 button, selecting what your choice is. I use AFL. And then going into the menu page 4 and resaving that profile and overwriting the profile setting so that that's stored. And if you update your profiles again, you'll have to do it again. So let's hope Leica in the next update, the next firmware update, fixes that bug, because that would be hugely helpful. It's not the biggest deal. This is still the most amazing little camera I've ever used in my life, and largely because of its lens. So it's worth doing. But, you know, one of those weird little quirks. No camera is perfect. Rick and I keep saying that over and over. You know, whether you're a Sony shooter, there are things that Nikon or Canon do better. Whether you're a Nikon shooter, there are things that Sony or Canon do better. If you're a Leica shooter, it's a pretty near perfect operating system, to be honest with you. I'm constantly reminding Nikon of things they could do more Leica-like, but this one bug is annoying. All right, everybody, so that's this week's video. If you're curious about anything that I've talked about or you have questions, hit me up in the comments, email me. You know, the discussion that you have with me surrounding these videos is really what drives the content on the channel. I hope that, you know, we'll be doing another office hours in the not so distant future before we take off for Europe. We've got the Oregon coast and then Europe. You can sign up for those free big photography get-togethers on Zoom and YouTube Live. You can click right here, hudsonhenry.com/office hours, and leave us a question. We're going to do an open Q&A on the next one. I hope everyone out there, like me, is finding interesting ways to stay creative and keep that brain power working, that photography learning curve in action. It's a lifelong process, learning photography, and I feel like the more we collaborate and work together, the better we all progress through the curve. So I hope you're enjoying yourselves and staying creative, staying safe. We'll see you next week.